はい、こうやって春の野山を朝からこう歩きますとね、実に気持ちいいですね。この初夏に向かってこの時期がこう野山を歩くのに最適ではないでしょうか。今日はですね、ジョーダンマックスウェルさんのラジオ番組、アメリカの、KABC790kHz AM この番組から収録した録音です。ここでジョーダンさんがですね、面白いことを語ってます。まず1、フィラデルフィアエクスペリメント、アメリカで、戦争最中ですね、軍艦がフィラデルフィア港で突然消えて、テレポーテーションしちゃったっていう事件がありました。それについて語っていることと、これはニコラ・テスラと関係あるんじゃないかという話をしてますね。それから今でも気象兵器、地震とかですね、気象兵器で使っているハープのことを話してます。1960年から70年頃、私もアマチュア無線というのをやってて、いつもですね、ショートウェーブ、短波帯で通信をしてますと、ウッドペッカーという雑音が入ってくるんですね。パルス音で入ってくるんですよ。どこの周波数に回してもその音が入ってくる。それがアメリカ軍とそれからソ連がやっていたウッドペッカーという、作戦だったんですね。これは ICBM のミサイルを、追撃するという感知するというシステムだったようです。そこら辺も話しておりましてね、実に興味深いんで、一部皆さんももしかしたら興味を持たれるんじゃないかなと思いまして、ちょっとその和訳をこちらで入れておりますので、見ていただきたいと思います。
Philadelphia experiment and crossbreeding animals with humans and all kinds of strange stuff the Nazis were doing and that this country was doing too. And so when it got kind of quiet after everything had kind of quieted down, I asked Tom Bearden, I said, Tom, what can you tell me about the Philadelphia experiment? And he says, Jordan, I'm not really at liberty to talk about that. And so, being a fool, I only opened my mouth to change feet. So I said, well, I don't want any national secrets or anything. I said, but is there anything you can tell me? And he says, listen to what I'm telling you. Listen to what I'm saying. I cannot talk about that subject. So just drop it. Well, of course, in front of everyone, I felt about that big. However, as I look back on it now over the years, he answered my question. And that was the way he answered it. Because I wanted to know, is there anything in fact to this story of the Philadelphia experiment? Well, the way he answered it is, look it, drop the subject. I cannot talk about it. That tells me there is something to it and he's not talking. So move on and forget it. So that told me that there is something to this idea of the Philadelphia experiment. The Philadelphia experiment was quite literally during the Second World War on the East Coast in Philadelphia and in that area. They were working on the possibility, scientists were working on the possibility that they could make a ship disappear in radar electrically, do something with the ship electrically so that radar wouldn't see it, so that it would be making the ship disappear on radar. Well, the story goes on. I don't know because I never got the straight of the story, but there's been a lot written about it, that when they were doing the experiment, they actually made the ship itself disappear. And then they were all scrambling around trying to figure out what just happened. The ship was still sitting in the water from what I've read, from what I've heard. I wasn't there, but from what I've read, the ship was, you could see the indentation in the water where the ship was sitting, but there was no ship there. So it was still there, but you can't see it now. So So it made a ship disappear, and then it made it reappear. They caused it to reappear. Well, I don't know. It could be that it just made it disappear on radar, or they made the ship actually disappear. I don't know, but it's very interesting. It's one of those really strange and interesting subjects, and go look it up. It's called the Philadelphia Experiment.
Was a lot of that having to do with the Tesla and his technology,
absolutely.
where he
Tesla.
implemented,
Right.
Frequencies and potentially moving atoms.
Yep. And there's something out there too called the woodpecker. Tom Bearden and Bob Beck were talking about it. This is maybe back in the 70s. It's very interesting. They called it the woodpecker. And it's actually a signal that's referred to by the scientists who know about it. It's called the woodpecker signal. Off the coast of Alaska is a series of islands off the coast called the Aleutian Islands. And that last little island in the chain is the closest America comes to Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on the Russian side, I've been told that there were different islands off the coast of Russia also. And then the very last one is a radio station of sorts. It's a broadcast station. And from what I remember, they said that the station required so much power that they had to have their own little nuclear plant there by the station to feed it. That's how much power that station required. It had to have its own nuclear power. What it wasn't a radio station. It was broadcasting a signal that became known as the woodpecker. And if you get today, I don't know if it's still around today, but there was a time when I used to have shortwave sets. And if you turn on the shortwave radio and you have to go back on the dial all the way to one side or the other, back it all the way up, and then slowly but surely go through the dial till you hear it. And when you hit the woodpecker signal, it's a clacking, but the clacking has frequency. It will go up in frequency, then it goes down low in frequency, it goes back up, and then it goes down, back down for about a half an hour, 40 minutes, and then all of a sudden it'll stop. Then you've got to start all over again to go find it again. Somewhere along the dial it's moved. And so what Beck and Dr. Bob Beck and Tom Bearden, these guys were talking about is the fact that it's a signal that the Russians were sending out, and they have, it was like over-the-horizon radar, like a radar machine on that island, but they have two of them, and they're like dishes, like these big TV dishes, and they have a computer that moves the dishes. And so wherever they want to cause trouble on the earth, with a tornado or hurricane or earthquake or whatever, a tsunami, whatever, they can move one of those dishes, aim it, and then on the computer program it, the other dish moved in the opposite direction, 90 degrees a different direction, and then they send out a very strong, called ELF, extreme low frequency, ELF wave. And it's a very powerful electrical wave that goes out and goes around the earth. It shoots it around the earth, and then it comes back. Well, as it goes around the earth, this one that's aimed a little 90 degrees off shoots around the world, around the earth this way. And so they calculate it to where the two will meet. The two waves will meet, and where they meet, depending on the frequency and the power put into each one, they can cause earthquakes, tsunamis, tidal waves. They can cause rainstorms.
Well, that's
hurricanes.
Similar to HAARP, which is taking place
Exactly.
right now in
Precisely.
the exact same area, and
right.
and to the next degree, you've got the the chemtrails that they say
That's exactly right.
assist with the HAARP and the frequencies to create weather.
A weather modification, and that's being used in wartime. It's being used by Russia against us, and we are using it against Russia. And
well, they're also using it against the farmers to create
that's right.
Spike either in corn or whatever that product might be.
But the other thing that Tom was talking about and the others were talking about in relation to that woodpecker is that they also will turn it to a different frequency, and then move the dishes around so it hits a different country, and they can make people angry. Because Nikola Tesla,
they can do behavior modification.
Yeah, behavior modification, exactly. And so this particular frequency, when it goes up high and then goes down, the reason why it does that is because, and I'm just paraphrasing what I was told back in the 70s, but that frequency causes some kind of a secretion of fluid in the brain to release fluids in the body. That Nikola Tesla had figured out how the body works and how vibrations in the brain cause the body to do certain things. And so it can cause women to become very irritable and very angry. And unless, of course, you were like my wife, who was angry at us all the time. But then also when it goes into low frequencies, was designed for men. And so what they can do is they can cause people in an area, a particular area where they crisscross the signals, to become very agitated, warlike, and angry, or sleepless, where people can't sleep or they become agitated. So depending on the frequency, they can affect your mental health.
I had a first-hand experience with some of the Tesla technology with a RIFE machine.
Oh yeah, Royal RIFE.
And a RIFE was fascinating. And he was, from what I understand, a gentleman who lived down in San Diego. But a friend of mine had a RIFE machine whose mother was experiencing some cancer, and he believes this kept her alive for a while. But anyway, he had the RIFE machine and said, "Why don't you try this?" So he actually had the RIFE machine. It had an argon bulb at the end, and it looked like a primitive kind of machine. And I said, what the hell? So he turned the thing on to a certain frequency, and he ran the bulb around my body, and I ran it around my head, around my arms, up and down my legs. And I came home that night, and my wife just says, "Oh my God, you stink like sulfur. What's the problem?" I said, I don't know. I said, I tried this machine. She says, "Oh, you just stink." And I smelled like rotten eggs. And what this machine did, and what the premise behind the technology is, each cell and each atom in your body has a certain frequency.
It certainly does.
And the RIFE machine, through its argon bulb and its technology, it fine-tuned, the good cells, and it killed the bad cells.
The bad ones. Mm-hmm.
And the smell that, I stunk like for a day or two.
はい、ジョーダン・マックスウェルさんのお話、ちょっとご紹介しましたが、こんな感じでですね、ジョーダン・マックスウェルさんのウェブサイトには宝物が詰まっておりまして、この下の方にリンクを貼ってありますから、どうぞクリックして見てみてください。今日も皆さんに見ていただきまして大変ありがとうございます。